Oh, why are we doing this again? Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Antonio. I'm a professional artist, and this is the second episode of Pro Artist critiquing beginner drawing tutorials online. Because apparently my team hates me, and they want to see me suffer again. So, once again, this is for your entertainment. Let's check out the first one. How to draw a girl's back? What? Okay. I mean, oh, why are we doing this? So that's what I hate about this community sometimes is that we're just giving away stupid things, giving away stupid knowledge that isn't knowledge. It's not knowledge. Like, what have we learned? Nothing. And I get that these are like shorts, and they get views. They obviously get views. That's the worst part. Why is the algorithm rewarding this? Why do people love watching this? Because to some degree, people must think that they've learned something from this, but you've learned nothing. Nothing. You've learned nothing. What we're seeing is like instead of connecting the lines, you do a little bit of fancier lines. Because if you have no idea how to draw, you don't know what the difference even is between left and right. So yes, you don't just draw lines for the waist. That's obvious. But the other way that they were showing, the correct way, is the exact same thing. You're just showing lines. If you're not explaining why, then the knowledge goes away. If you want to understand figures, it's just about understanding shapes. So if in this case, if we want to know how to draw the abdomen, the midline of the body, we just have to understand that we usually divide it into like a cylinder. And that cylinder, at first, you just start with that cylinder, and basically that cylinder, we attach it to sort of this underpants version of the hips, right? That's all we do, essentially. Now, what we can do is we can add, we call this form addition, we can add sort of these elongated spheres to the cylinder. And when we do that, we get a better representation of the midline overall. That's basically it. So once we understand that and we know how to wedge these shapes, we can create abdomens that sort of insert themselves into the rib cage and the hips because we just understand the form of it. And well, that's essentially it. That's all we need to understand. We just need to understand these simple forms because then we can draw it in any angle from anywhere, from imagination, and in any type. So not only like girls, but also male, but also other body types for men and women. We can do it in any way we like. And that's all you need to know, and that's all they would need to explain. But no, we're living in a time where this is getting more views. Do I sound annoyed? It's because I am. All right, second one. How to draw hair. This should be good. Oh yeah, arrows. Of course, that's what you start with, arrows. Okay, more arrows, obviously. Right? Chicken scratching, obviously. Oh, and the end result. No, that was it. That's all we got. That's all we got? Okay, arrows. Yeah, okay. Arrows. Yeah, chicken scratching. Got it. Okay. So, well, exact same thing here, right? It's the exact same thing. So what we're doing is we're using shorthands like these arrows, and there's an indication of the ribbons, right? But they probably don't treat it like ribbons, but there's this indication of the ribbons, which is like these triangulated forms, which basically we can make into any shape. And once we can understand that they can also be made three-dimensionally, so they have like another side to them, and we understand that they can have thickness as well and all of that, then we can start understanding a little bit more about hair, but none of that gets explained here. Now the arrows, to their credit, you can use those arrows for like direction of hair, right? So we have direction of hair. We can have, when we have a cranium, we can have like a midline, and we can have hair radiating to different sides. That's basically what the direction of hair does. But without context, that is of no use to you. So for anyone that wants to get into learning how to draw hair, I would always advise that you actually just start to learn how to simplify the hair as just one giant mass. And I know this is not commonly used, like everyone goes straight to the ribbons, but I'm very much more of an advocate for just learning to simplify hair into one giant mass. So if we have some hair, like longer hair even, or like even some short hair, and we have the cranium, we want to understand that the hair can be like this giant mass with thickness, by the way, that sort of wraps around this cranium like this, right? So let's say this would be the hair, and then we have the face like this, right, over here, right? So this doesn't matter, but and then on top of this mass, we can start creating some of those ribbons, right? We can start or adding some of those ribbons, like we can get some cutaway ribbons or some flyaway ribbons, in the sense that the same as we would do it if we wanted to create fur. Like we don't start with fur in the center, we just start breaking the silhouette of this sphere in this case to suggest that it's fur, because everything starts with the silhouette. That's the first thing we read. And it'd be the same thing with hair. We have this giant mass, and then we have sort of these breakout ribbons that sort of better suggest that we're actually looking at hair. And that will make it easier for you because, one, you also understand that you're drawing on top of a three-dimensional form. But if you have no clue on how to draw on top of a three-dimensional form, you're lost anyway. You can follow these ticky-tacky freaking shorts and copy exactly what you see and get the exact same result 100 times over, and eventually you'll draw that exact same hairstyle you've been drawing 1,000 times. You'll get better at it, but you will still have no clue on how to actually draw from imagination. So please, when you go to learn how to draw, make sure you just use the proper fundamentals, okay? And I have plenty of opportunity to plug Artwod in this, but at this point, a lot of you should be aware that I am the guy that advocates for learning how to draw with form, right? And we do that at Artwod, probably the best in the world, but you can do it on your own as well. But make sure that you start prioritizing how to draw intuitively in perspective and how to draw form properly. Okay, next torture video. How to draw a girl face. Here we go. Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, circles and hearts. That's yeah. So, mm, I mean, it's fairly obvious. I mean, most of you will probably understand that this is not the way to learn it. Okay, this is like there's these fun little, what I would call, party tricks sometimes that sometimes are actually useful. Like there's some party tricks that are actually useful, but this isn't it. Okay, you can learn how to draw feminine faces or just faces in general much faster by just understanding a few basic proportions and a few basic principles on how to draw the eyes, draw the nose, and draw the lips. And it's actually fairly easy to draw any of these. It's more about understanding just a bit of the structure of how the eyes work. And then when you understand that structure, you can play with its proportions, and it becomes incredibly easy to play with the proportions. Same for the nose. If you just have a basic understanding of that the nose is a box and you can attach sort of a spherical shape on top of it, and then add the nostrils, which is your manipulated little boxes, and then you can add some anatomical detail. You can really, really start to understand these principles very fast. It's not rocket science, but a lot of these tutorials that give you these shorthands almost make it seem like just do this because the real thing of learning is too hard. And I can promise you it's not. It's actually incredibly easy, but no one is actually teaching you properly. And that is the sad thing about all of this. But yeah, this is not the way. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right. Next up. How many of these torture videos do we have? 2 more? Okay. Thank God. This is how you're supposed to draw body proportion. Oh, whoa, claim. Okay. Let's go.
Stop making your bodies way too big or way too short like this. This just looks way too disproportionate. So in order to fix that, you're gonna wanna do this.
Yes.
The body should always be about 3 to 4 head lengths long. And remember, split the upper torso and the bottom torso with a rectangle and a triangle shape. And then you can add the details like the chest muscles and the abdomen. Now your characters won't look like Yoda. You're welcome.
I mean, when the claim of like your body should always be 3 to 4 heads long, yes, the ideal proportions of the body are, 7 to 8 heads in length. So your torso will be about 3 to 4 heads in length in ideal proportions, but that doesn't really teach you how to draw from imagination or how to draw your own OC, right? Like your own original characters, because you may want to draw elves or dwarves or whatever, right? And those are completely different proportions. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with just the proportions of the head compared to the body. That's actually not the case. If you want to draw like dwarven body proportions, they have pretty big heads and a tiny torso. And that might be the ratio might be like 1 or 2 heads at most when you draw dwarf bodies. So it's not about that, because then your proportions will always look off according to this tutorial, which is not going to be the case. You just have to understand how to create balance in the figure itself. And the way you do that is not by quickly going into proportions of the head and then instantly adding muscle on top of that. It's just by understanding the simplicity of the figure mannequin. And once you understand the simplicity of the figure mannequin, basically that it's a rib cage attached to a cylindrical form, attached to another sort of cylindrical form, you can play with these forms, these simple forms, very easily, very fast. That is the secret of drawing, is that you play with building blocks and then you create the illusion of complexity. You don't start with complexity. And that's what most of these tutorials get wrong anyway. So yeah. I don't approve. But hey, that's my opinion, right? Maybe people find this useful. I wonder how many people have actually learned how to draw from these reels. All right, last one. Thank God. How to draw hand. Here we go. This is the wrong way. Lines, okay. Seems pretty decent. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's good. That's actually good. Okay. Okay, that's an anti-tutorial, all right? That's like almost against it almost feels like a protest against these short tutorials, which I love. Okay. So the person in question here could probably draw pretty well, seeing from the wrong version of the hand, which is actually pretty good. And the reason they're able to do that, I'm pretty sure, is because they probably understand they've drawn hands a lot, and based on how they did it in sort of the left side here, they've drawn hands quite a few times, as in they understand the proportions and almost like the shape language of hands. And you can really do this pretty fast yourself if you understand the basic building blocks of the cylindrical form of the hands, and then also you're like using our beanie method of the hands, where we have like a beanie, basically a beanie for the thumb, like this, and a beanie for the pinky, like this, and then an elongated beanie for the cushion of the fingers, and then basically you have the fingers attached to that, right? And this already forms a hand, as you can see, and it becomes, you can see this in the tutorial as well. This becomes very handy when you start to understand organic three-dimensional form in space, and you can draw that intuitively, because then you can draw like this beanie shape in 3 dimensions, and you can start adding the pinky to that, and it becomes easy to have these shorthands on how to draw the hands from many different angles. So yeah, if you once you understand this intuitively, it's pretty easy to do what they're doing in this short. So yeah, thumbs up for that. Also, thumbs up for making it like almost like a protest against these sort of tutorials. So yeah, I loved that we could end with this one. But as always, make sure that you don't take a lot of these short tutorials too seriously. I know that they, some of them are meant well, but in my opinion, they shouldn't be titled "How to Do This." Now, of course, they do that because the algorithm picks it up easier and it gets more views and clicks, which is just the nature of the game. I get that and I respect it, but it's not how you will learn how to draw. And if you're serious about learning how to draw, then I would always recommend to start with like the true fundamentals, and they're much easier to learn than like art institutions and other sort of online teachings try to make it out to be. It's actually incredibly simple to start learning this. And all it takes is consistent practice, as with everything. So if you're up for that, then as always, you can check out the free ebook we have from Artwod, which already gives you quite a good insight on how to get started and how we think about simplicity and how it, sort of translates into creating more complex drawings. And that will help you a ton because it will make you intuitive in 3 dimensional drawing. And if you need sort of the actual guided application of this, then there's always the Artwod app at artwod.com. And if you don't want to do any of that, you can always check out all of the YouTube videos we have for you online for free already. All right, have fun. Hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next one.